How's it going, y'all? It's Gregor. Some time ago, I asked you all for suggestions as to what kind of speculation content I should do next, and as a good number of you encouraged me to do something regarding Austria-Hungary, particularly the battleships they used, I decided to do a video regarding that. I was surprised to see there's actually a pretty sizable amount of potential content here, and while I don't think a full tech tree is really possible, I can easily see some of these ships being part of a sub-branch of an existing tree, namely the Germans. Let's take a look at the context of this lesser-known navy. Basically, the Austro-Hungarian Navy was responsible for defense of the Adriatic Sea, primarily. The Navy participated in the Austro-Prussian conflicts of the mid-19th century, the Chinese Boxer Rebellion, and of course the Great War. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the poor guy who'd end up being what started the war in the first place, wanted to expand his country's presence as a naval power and campaigned heavily to do so. Of course, when the First World War ended, Austria-Hungary ceased to exist as a nation altogether, and the independent states of Austria and Hungary were landlocked. Yugoslavia bordered the sea from that point. Still, during the war, the country was a major point of concern for the French and Italian navies in the Mediterranean. Stationed in port, the Austro-Hungarians could maintain sea denial, but their fighting capacity was a bit limited considering they had to contend with multiple nations' worth of warships. By the end of the war, things got even more complicated with the mutiny that took place. A final surprise attack was launched in the summer of 1918, and that didn't go well either. So, basically, the Austro-Hungarian Navy had the short end of the stick, having to fight 3 different nations' worth of ships. As for the ships they did have, an eclectic mix of battleships. I'll talk about them for the most part. Tier 4, SMS TEGETTHOFF, commissioned 1913. During World War I, this class of battleship was probably the most powerful fielded in the Mediterranean, so the presence they established in the Adriatic was well recognized. Oddly enough, the Austro-Hungarians had a practice of putting their more experienced sailors aboard their destroyers and torpedo boats, since they were more actively used. During the war, this ship bombarded the coast of Italy and remained in port until the end of the war during an ill-fated raid in 1918 that led to the sinking of her sister ship. She was surrendered to Italy following the war, then scrapped in 1924. Stats. Main battery consisted of a set of guns that could fire every 20 seconds. Considering they were 305mm guns, this is pretty impressive. 4 triple-barreled turrets, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. Secondaries consisted of 6 secondary guns per broadside at 149mm and 9 70mm guns on each broadside. You immediately see what would make this ship work though. It's all about firepower. The only problem? No AA. Kinda like the Arkansas Beta. She's also slow as hell, a little over 20 knots, and would be the slowest Tier 4 battleship. Although the ship was short in length, so it'd have a really tight turning circle and could probably torpedo beat surprisingly well. Armor, not exciting. Deck and turret armor is negligible, and citadel protection isn't horrible and can protect from medium close range. It's beat by the Kaiser at 280mm. I think this ship would be a really good event or premium vessel attached to the German tree. It's got great guns, but it isn't overpowered. There's another sort of ship that could be added that's a pre-dread. Now on to that. Tier 2, SMS RADETZKY, commissioned 1908. RADETZKY was a pre-dread and therefore a multi-gun ship. Service career relatively limited among her 2 counterparts. She participated in a number of short bombardments and towards the end of the war was prepared to transfer to the Slovenes, Croats, and Serbs, but was eventually transferred to the Italians instead. Like I said, a pre-dread, so multiple main forms of main arms. 2 305mm turrets on the center line, 1 fore and 1 aft. The 4 238mm cannons are set up in wing turrets, 2 to each side. Broadside of 8 guns, then with 4 12-inch guns and 4 91.5-inch guns. The 12-inch guns fired at 2.5 rounds per minute, the 9.5-inch guns fired at 4 rounds per minute. For the secondaries, 10 100mm guns on each side, which is expected for a Tier 2 ship. Armor, a 230mm belt with reasonably well-protected turrets. The ship would function very similar to the Mikasa that we have in-game right now. I imagine the ship's lower caliber guns would be automated. Other than that, you have a respectable Tier 2 brawling ship, similar to the Mikasa. It'd make a decent gift ship for special occasions. There are also a number of paper ships that could work in this line that I think people would be relatively satisfied with in the same capacity. Here's just one of them. ERSATZ MONARCH class, planned commissioned, World War I. These ships were designed to replace the coastal defense ships dubbed Monarch class. The Monarch ships weren't suited to fighting in open ocean in the same capacity as battleships, and as such, saw limited usage during the war aside from bombardments. The paper ship meant to replace them was essentially an enlarged version of the TEGETTHOFF class. Planned to be built in 1914, the outbreak of the war delayed their construction, and ultimately none of the ships were ever laid down. Some of their guns were used for other purposes though. Stats-wise, the ship seems like another decent Tier 3 or Tier 4 battleship that would make a good premium. Armament would have consisted of 10 350mm guns consisting of 4 turrets, 1 triple-barreled and 1 dual-barreled fore and aft respectively. Secondaries, 7 150mm cannons and 8 90mm cannons on each side. The armor belt would have been pretty tough too, 310 with comparably tough turrets. Quite sluggish though, 21 knots. But that's about it when we talk about ships that existed in reality. Austria-Hungary's battleships were certainly powerful, but like I said, they were relatively underused. There were a number of battlecruiser designs that the Austro-Hungarian Navy planned on fielding eventually, but none of these ships were ever laid down. Between 1915 and 1917, they came up with 11 preliminary paper designs. These plans consisted of 2 battleships and a wide range of battle cruisers. The ships would have been reasonably fast in a straight line with powerful main armaments ranging from calibers from 350 to 380 to even slated 420mm. Blaze it. You can read up on the individual aspects of these ships in the link I have provided in the description. As for other ship classes, that's about it. Austria-Hungary fielded lots and lots of destroyers. 2 classes stand out. The HUSZÁR class, commissioned in 1905, which I imagine will be placed at Tier 3, and the TÁTRA class, commissioned in 1912, which I imagine either a Tier 4 or Tier 3. If anything, these ships could all be a part of the merged European tree that many people have suggested in the past, or perhaps side branches of the German tree. Just a thought. Now, Austria-Hungary might be a bit of a write-off in the history books, and to some developers not really worth mentioning in their very own World War I games, but it was still an active and important card dealer in the Great War, and I think adding even some of these ships would please naval historians and ship collectors alike. I have to admit that I like the look of the TEGETTHOFF quite a bit, and would probably wouldn't mind having one of them in my port. That's about all I have to talk about these ships though, specifically. I'm gonna wrap the video up. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe for more World of Warships content like this, and give the video a thumbs up, share it with your friends. It really does go a long way. And if you have any suggestions for future speculation content regarding World of Warships or any other games related to this genre, leave me an email. It's in the channel description. Anyway, I'm Gregor. Take it easy, guys. Thanks for watching.